Welcome back to We Hear You, ideas, insights, and inspirations. So today we have something special for you into a world that we have not really traveled into. We're going to be focusing on recycling and how reviving is going to be a big part of our conversation moving forward. Now, the buzzword has been sustainability for the longest time, but let's talk to someone who's been doing it way longer, even before it was a buzzword. We have Mr. Kian who's joining us. He is the CEO of Heng Hiap Industries. Thank you, sir, for being a part of the conversation. Welcome to We Hear You.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here, Terence.
You're most welcome. So let's get started by talking about you first. What's your background like, and how did you get into the industry that you're in right now?
That's an interesting beginning. I started the plastic recycling journey, started the company in year 2002.
Mm-hmm.
But my experience in recycling started much earlier at a young age of 10.
What?
Yeah,
10?
yeah, because my parents are basically recycler,
Okay.
mobile pickers or mobile collectors. So they are both truck driver collecting recyclable from household to household. So back then we have this beri surat kabar lama,
Oh, right,
buy
right,
old
right,
newspaper.
right.
That's how we started out. Mom was a truck driver, dad was a truck driver collecting recyclable from household to household. So while my friends were playing badminton and basketball, I was separating recyclable back at home, after my schoolwork and especially during school holidays, because, I get to decide that if I throw recyclable on the right, I make 20 cents, per kilogram. I throw it to the left, I get 40 cents. I throw it to the center, I get 80 cents. I love it. And the whole time I'm thinking like, how can I do this faster, better, cheaper? And that's how I started.
Wow. Wow. Not many people would have that kind of legacy when it comes to recycling. And certainly a skill set that you have fine tuned as you grew into the industry. What was it like back then, though? What was recycling like? How receptive were Malaysians to the idea of recycling?
Actually, it was a tough start. My parents, especially my father, growing up feeling very ashamed being recycler. So I remember when we grew up, my father always asked two things, from all the siblings. So three brother and a sister. He always asked two things from us. Number one, get a degree, any degree. I can get a degree in pencil. He'll be super happy. And then the second thing is never become a recycler. He said. Yeah, and the reason is because recycler literally is being recycling. It's literally being viewed as the job is dirty. The environment is dirty, and then it's just a dirty job in his view. So when we started out, it was like don't tell anybody we're a recycler. If anybody asks what does your father do, tell them your father is a truck driver. A truck driver, and I'm like, how is that better? I thought recycling was way cooler because you are giving a second chance to recycling, but not for him. So that's what happened back then. But then, just like any family, reverse psychology works very well. So today, out of four of us, three of us got a degree, but all four of us are all in recycling.
Wow. Well, I mean, the entire social stigma, if there was any around recycling, has shifted, I would say, considerably. I mean, people are seeing that recycling, reviving products is certainly the way to go. Sustainability has been the buzzword that's injected into the whole field, and it is seen as a very green ocean industry. Everyone wants to jump in. Green, not just because it's green for the environment, but green because of the color of money. So your 20 cents, 40 cents, 80 cents has definitely snowballed into ringgits upon the kilogram. When did you see the potential for larger scale operations?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good question, Terence. I think, when I first started out, I started to look into different opportunity in recycling. So we have really humble start, being mobile collectors, and then slowly we become yacht owner, processor, and aggregator. So my father decided to focus in metal scrap. And then, and so today, fast forward, we are one of the two largest metal scrap supplier to local steel mills. And then another brother joined the business. I'm the second one, but my younger brother joined the business first, and then my older brother after graduation joined the business, and we decided to be in paper. So we are then, one of two largest paper scrap supplier to local paper mills. I also have a non-ferrous sister. Yeah, I'm the plastic brother. And so before I decided on plastic, I have an observation. That is, back then, there was more than 25 years ago, yeah, quarter century ago. I have an observation that whenever I'm awake, I will be able to touch plastic within arm length when I'm awake. And then being someone in recycling, I have no idea how plastic is being recycled. So I went into some quick study and I found out that here in Malaysia, the entire plastic recycling value chain is very, very fragmented. So to go from our sampah, our plastic sampah, our plastic scrap, to convert into specialized material, you need to go to 6 steps. And these 6 steps are highly fragmented, and all these A, B, C, D, E, F are not talking to each other. So as material go from A to F, it's a complete mess and a complete chaos, which is why the reputation of recycled plastic being substandard, costly, so on and so forth. And when I found out about this, I was super excited. You know how you graduated, from college, you're invisible, you're Superman, and you found out that, hey, the industry is very fragmented. So if fragmentation is a problem, then integration is a solution. How hard could it be? Let's integrate this. Let's start a plastic recycling company. Let's integrate this. I was super excited. Oh boy, but I have no idea what I got myself into. So
Okay.
that's how I started out. Yeah.
All right. Talk to us a bit about this whole idea of recycling plastic, because I think we take it for granted, right? We drop off our plastic load at a recycling center or a collection facility, and we don't actually know what goes on behind the scenes. And then suddenly we find on the shelves of products somewhere else made with recycled material. So we take it for granted that it is made with recycled material. What is that process like for converting used plastics into recycled material?
Yeah. So essentially 6 steps that we need to go through. First step, we collect. Yeah. Second step, we separate the plastic, different types of plastic. Third step, we crush the plastic material to reduce the size because plastic item tends to be big. And then after that, we wash the plastic. Yeah. So at part number 4 or D, we do the washing. And then after that, we do the mixing. We have to create a base material, like a base blend. And then after that, number 6 is what we call extrusion. We melt it down like spaghetti strand, and then we cut it into little bits. That becomes a raw material. Then we send it to our customer who actually make into product like tables and chairs that we see at our mama store and all that. So there are 6 different processes. Most of the time, 6 different processes means 6 independent companies.
I see.
So one company do collection, one company do sorting, so crushing, washing, mixing, and final extrusion. A, B, C, D, E, F, but not talking to each other. Everybody do what they like. So if a Pachi at C were doing something that A did not like or E did not like, they say, you're my customer's customer or you're my supplier's supplier. I don't care. So as material flow from A to F, cost goes up, quality goes down. And therefore, the consistency has always been, a question. So yeah, that's the background of the industry.
So a plastic bottle will not necessarily come back as a plastic bottle. It will come back as a table or a chair or maybe something else.
Yeah.
And that's because of the process that you just described. So like I said, we really take it for granted. How can the average person who's really gung-ho about recycling, reducing their waste, how can they help individuals like yourselves in that first part of the process?
Yeah. So the first thing is to give the scrap a circular destiny. I'm going to give you 2 examples for that. So it's precisely everything you just talked about, Terence, how it started at mineral water bottle that can end up, become shoes and also, t-shirts and all that. So let's talk about more cases within Malaysia. So one of the things that HHI have done in collaboration with Samdabi Plantation is that, Samdabi use a lot of fertilizer. Yeah, for their plantation, obviously. And the bags, usually they don't keep it well. And so that it runs around everywhere. Well, not everywhere. I mean, but sometimes there are some that actually are scattered around the plantation, and it will clog up drainage, it create problem and issue that is not ideal for Samdabi plantation. So we did a project together. We call it a metamorphosis project. So what we do is that we collect all the fertilizer bags and then we convert it to tables and chairs for the estate school. So when the operators see a bag that's actually on the floor, then what they see is that, the plantation guys, then they would look at it differently and say, you know what? The circular destiny for these bags could be tables and chairs for my kids. So that's exactly what they are doing. So that's one thing that's happening. The second, a project that we are doing right now is that, all of us have this one cabinet in our kitchen. Basically, when you open it up, these are all our Grab food containers. We get our Grab food, we wash it, clean it, we stack them up, and then we start to see like it goes as it was supposed to be one tower, and then there's two tower, and then there's three tower again. So all of us have that cabinet,
Right.
all that. So we did project with kids and say, let's give plastic scrap a circular destiny. We collect all the food containers from school and we convert it into pen. Yeah, so we work with a big European company. We all grew up with this brand. They are famous for their highlighter. So you know who they are?
Ah, okay.
So
Let's not drop the name here.
yeah. So there you go. So then we make them into pen. So all the pen barrels, so all the pen that we give back to the school, the previous life of that pen was Grab food container. So the idea that we are trying to impart to the student is that let's have an experiential learning here, that what we do is to give a circular destiny to plastic that we are using. So when they go back to their parents, they are saying that, you know what? It is okay for us to use plastic, but we must make sure after we convert it, what is the circular destiny for that? If we do not know, at least we send it to a recycling center who actually will recycle this into material again.
Nice, nice. I mean, I like that logic, a circular destiny for all the products. So, how many times can plastic be given this circular life? I mean, let's say the pen, after it's being used, can it also re-enter another circular lifespan? How many lifespans do products like this have?
Oh, I love this question. So the answer for that is really interesting. So for this product, whenever we collect, let's just use the food container. First, it was food container, then it becomes pen, and then we go through the same ABCDF process. Then it can make into another, product, tables, chairs, or whatever. Rule of thumb, depending how we use it and also the environment that it's exposed to, it's about 5 to 7 times mechanically. So you recycle that, but each and every time when you recycle that, plastic is a polymer chain. So when you recycle that, the polymer chain broke down. It's being compromised. So until, let's say, 7 times, the molecular structure collapse, it cannot be recycled, what we call mechanically anymore. However, what we could do is that we can add another process called chemical recycling. We can then convert this scrap that cannot be recycled anymore. Chemically, we can reverse it to naphtha. So meaning, naphtha is the raw material to make new plastic material. So like here in Malaysia, we have Petronas, we have Lotte Titan, they make a lot of new plastic material. Their more raw material is naphtha. So from naphtha, it goes into new plastic material. So what happens here then is that we convert plastic scrap to naphtha. And the whole journey, the 7+1 journey starts all over again.
Wow.
So technically, the answer is it could potentially or technically be recycled indefinitely.
Nice. Wow, that is really eye-opening. I mean, as someone who's never looked behind the curtain, and I'm sure a lot of you watching as well, you've never looked behind the curtain to figure out how the process works. Well, now a lot of understanding has come to light. And on that note, to start a business in this industry, it does seem like it requires a very capital intensive setup. The infrastructure must be really demanding. You have so many processes, and then the what if to chemically recycle it back to naphtha. That sounds like a whole other process as well. So, what are we talking about? How did you migrate your dad's original setup, and then with your brother and your other brother coming in, have these differentiations in paper, and then yourself with plastic, which seems like, kind of the most intensive capital wise. So, what was that process like from what you started off with earlier, the scrap metal, and then into paper, and then adding your plastic component?
Yeah. But let's start from the introspective, and then I'll share the experience. The metal and paper business are a lot more established. So they are doing metal and paper. So these are two different company: Heng Hiap Metal Recycling, Heng Hiap Paper Recycling. So for Heng Hiap Industries, slowly focusing on plastic. So when I first started out, I thought I oversimplified everything. I was my confession is that I was quite arrogant about it. I thought it was very easy. But the business has taught me to be more humble. Yeah, the idea was good. So I, when I graduate, I have a engineering degree, and then I went to get my graduate degree on a scholarship. And then my pitch to the scholarship was that I'm going to activate a plastic recycling business. So the ABCDF came out from my graduate school, really good paper, business paper. And then the minute I start, I do ABCDEF altogether, I failed miserably. On the second year, I remember that the family got around me and just said that, you know what, we're going to pull the plug because, company is suffering. Obviously, the execution wasn't, what you thought about. And then there's no way that we could actually do that. I was very determined, because I thought that conceptually everything was right, but I didn't execute it well. And I was too ambitious. I was too conceptual, and I was too arrogant that I thought, I oversimplified everything. And then it was my team who gathered me. So three of my core team member and say, Kian, can we have coffee? Yeah, I still remember that we have coffee at a nearby outfield golf club in Johor. And then they were like, Kian, let's don't do A, B, C, D, E, F. Let's just do A and B. Let's just get A and B right. Then we go to the next. And let's just scale it backwards, and let's just be really grounded, be really good at one thing first before we add another. And I think that really helped me to really scale back, because each and every time when we go from A to B, B to C, the reason the gap is there is because there are some industrial weaknesses that broke the chain. And in order to do that, we need to do a lot of innovation. We need to invest a lot into that. And back then, in a way, almost until today, we still find a lot of challenges in the supporting industry. Yeah, because this is not an established industry. This is not one of the legacy industry. So the supporting industry wasn't there, or there's not enough of that to help us. So we need to make our own machinery, so to speak. And to make our own machinery is very expensive. So when we do all this, what happens is that, okay, we do different variation of innovation, and then we start making products. But sometimes, even that the innovation works, the product that we made, we still have to find a market, a customer, so on and so forth. I think our breakthrough came in when we start to realize that let's do a reverse innovation, meaning we do not do innovation until there's an existing customer that come in and say, Kian, I want a product like this. I know you don't have a product like this. It may require you to do some R&D. Do that, and then whenever you have a breakthrough, let us know. We'll buy the product from you. Then usually when there's already a customer park, then only we do the innovation. The good thing about that is that in the process of R&D, which is a very costly exercise, even though that the product is half baked, the customer will buy it.
Because nothing like it exists.
Exactly.
Right.
So that actually helped us to make all the baby step, along the way.
Wow, that is. How many years did you have to wait before your final vision of what the plastic recycling industry should look like came into fruition? Because it sounds like a lot of waiting and a lot of trial and error.
Yeah. I was I gotta say that I was very lucky that, when we were doing that, first 2 year almost failed and then start over, reset. And then it took us another 2 to 3 years until we reassemble everything. For us over here, we are very lucky. My first, I think, integrated model really come into fruition is that when we spoke to MTDC, Malaysia Technology Development Corporation. So we went to MTDC and then we said that, you know what, we have an idea that we want to integrate this, but it's going to cost us a lot of money. And this is what we are thinking. Yeah, I still remember back then the officer that was meeting in Teraman, and then he was like, Kian, if you can do half the thing that you said, the company will already fly. So we want you to share more and then, tell us more about it. And then I said, I need to connect you to my superior. Then I met Puan Mariama. Oh my gosh, she was scary. When you talk about tough love, she was scary. And then she was like, prove this, validate that, and all that. And if I didn't do something right, she would outright scold me and all that. But in return, they help and guide us. And then they give us a grant. Yeah, I remember it was CRDF, a commercialization of locally developed R&D grant. And then we actually put everything together. And that's why, I always thought that here in Malaysia, being a SME is the best thing, for any businesses. Whatever you can do, just make sure, you're the SME, because there are so many things that the government are doing to help the SME company. So as long as, SME take the first step, the help is out there, whether it's from government, whether it's from bank, whether it's from the other agencies, helps, are basically everywhere. Yeah. So that was my first breakthrough.
Wow, this is going to be one exciting interview. I can already tell, because it's a very passionate entrepreneur in an industry that's not really that developed. But today, he is doing really well. We'd like to find out more. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, this exciting story continues. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to We Hear You. Thank you for staying with us. Today, we're in conversation with Kian, the CEO of a very specialized company on plastics and recycling. So it's a very exciting, still new industry, but he's been on the job for 24 years now. So thank you for taking time to speak to us about this exciting journey. You talked about the 7 processes, and this includes, of course, the chemical recycling, where you turn things back into naphtha, the base product for plastics. What exactly was your thought process when you scaled back and then slowly start to conquer part by part and putting all these 7 parts together now into an entire ecosystem?
Again, I really like that question. I think, a lot of time we will have we face with a lot of industrial weaknesses and all that. I'll use a small example. Yeah, back then when they do the mixing, each batch of the mixing is, let's say, 100 kilogram. A very small batch and all that. But if I'm exporting in a container, a container of 25 tons, I'm not going to tell my customer there are 250 batches and all that. So the idea is that, can I then do just one batch, 25 tons, all come from one blend and one mixing processes? I was laughed at. Everyone was like, you have no idea what you're doing. Because in our industry, nobody do a mix for 25 tons. Everybody do 100 kilogram and we're happy. And all the customer accept it. Why do you need to change it? And all that. But my idea is that if I wanted the material to run with certain consistency, or if when I export the product, I'm sure my customer want to have deal with one batch rather than 250 batches. And I start to look around, and everyone was saying that it was not necessary. And to me, I see that as an industrial weakness. And then I decided to break that. We do a lot of different type of innovation to do that mix. And of course, we asked the overseas customer and say, hey, if I were to do that in one batch, would you love it? I'm like, absolutely. So we decided to do that. Now, to many, they were thinking like you are spending extra money. You do not know the business, because everyone doing 100, that's equal play field. Why do you need to change that? So I think when we were confronted with many issues like that, we usually have two choices. One, we do nothing because equal play field for everybody. Two is that really look into this objectively, or maybe from a third party's point of view, and say, you know what, this is an industrial weakness. Let's break this. Let's lever up and do something about it. So for us, I think the breakthrough mentality becomes something that's very important between me and my team. So we do a lot of different types of breakthrough, things that cannot be done or hasn't been done before or not necessary. So the idea is that whenever we are faced with a lot of challenges, a lot of hurdles, all the rintangan that we can think about. So that to us, it becomes an opportunity to break through, because the minute we break through, it's a whole different game altogether. So I think it's commonly known as the blue ocean. Then you don't see any competitor there. You are the only one there, and then you get to rewrite the rules, how you want to conduct the games and everything. So for us, I think breaking the inherent industrial weaknesses is absolutely key to have an innovative company.
That is disruption at its finest, right? And when you do that, you force everyone else who's been so status quo oriented to also change along with you. So I'm sure when you started, you probably were the only one in that blue ocean, but now there are other fish swimming in that sea together with you. So all the people who were previously naysayers have now kind of come over to your side of the fence and are also doing the same thing. So the whole industry has been upended. That is something that is truly a hallmark of a great entrepreneur. Did you develop that? Is it inherent skill set within yourself?
In a way, yeah. I think, it all goes back to back then, the 20 cents, 40 cents, and 80 cents. The idea was, how do we make things faster, better, cheaper, and all that. And when I was thinking about, how can I achieve that? One of the things, I was trying to learn, which degree would work with me best. And then I was like, oh, sounds engineering, let's try engineering. And my first class, I remember, is called Intro to Engineering. And the lecturer or professor start with a saying like this. He says, God has hidden a lot of treasure in nature. Okay? It is up to human being to manipulate nature to harvest the gift. And to sum it up in one word, engineering. And then the minute I heard that, I'm like, okay, so engineering is for me. So for me, I like the challenges. I like the breakthrough, and to me, the relevance of innovation is breakthrough. Yeah, that we need to continue to do all this breakthrough, and because that's when magic start to happen. Yeah, until I was proven. Not exactly wrong, that I learned a greater insight that, having the breakthrough on innovation, the relevance of innovation is not just breakthrough. The relevance of innovation should have been impact. So after the breakthrough, if shocks and theory, no use, what's the impact that it's going to bring? And then start to think about, not just breakthrough, but impact.
Nice. We'll come back to impact shortly, but I also want to talk about how you work with the ecosystem. Your industry was fragmented, you said, when you
Yeah.
first started,
Yeah.
and there were a lot of weaknesses within the industry. So the existing players may not have been willing to play ball, so to
Yeah.
speak. How did you build the ecosystem that you needed to thrive and you needed to create the types of products and services that you wanted?
Mm. Again, very good question there. When we go to overseas, when you see successful plastic recycling at a national level, usually it happen in developed country.
Mm.
Yeah, so they have separation as source. They use what we call a top-down approach. They use separation as source, then they have enforcement that make that happen, communication, so on and so forth. So a top-down approach. Here in Malaysia, while government continue to do that, what we, Heng Hiap Industry understand, or HHI understand, is that while government is doing top down, why not as businesses, rather than waiting for top down, let's do a bottom up. And then we meet halfway. So when we do bottom up, to build the ecosystem, we must understand our tribe, yeah, the community we are working with. So we must understand the mobile collectors, what is important for mobile collectors, yard owner, processor, and aggregator. We work through this community. We started from this community, right? From Berisgua Kabalama to a small yard owner, and then so on and so forth. That's something that we have gone through. So we understand the business, the DNA, each and every one of these businesses, and there are different focus in that. Mobile collectors, usually they have a small truck. You see the Pachi, and Pachi Machi, or even, just a small bike, small van, small truck, and all that. That vehicle itself is the one that they are using. And then for them to load as much and as fast as possible, and to unload as much and to sell as much as possible, as fast as possible, that turnaround is their business model. Meaning, time is money for them. Yeah, or time is money for us. I'm still in the ecosystem. So then everything is all about time. And then when you go to a small yard, now you go to a small yard, it's all the labor that's doing manual work. Then you hear ketok sini, ketok sana, dismantling and all that. All the value add dependent on labor. That's when I was doing my 20, 40, and 80 cents. Now, but there's so much to dismantle. So which actually gave the maximum margin yield per labor hour becomes something that's very important. So how can we as a partner help that? Yeah. So back to the mobile picker, when we do that, we know that that turnaround is very important. So we make sure when a truck driver comes, we make sure they unload very quickly. We pay them very quickly. Most of the time we pay them in cash so that they got everything, and then they can move on to the next load and all that. With the with the yard owner doing the separation, how can we make it easier? How can we actually move the material so that all this start to mobilize, because they're very small shop lot. So how do we make things easy for them? And then likewise to then a processor and aggregator. So each and every one of them, we must truly understand what is their strength, what is their weaknesses, what kind of partner that we need to be to offer that plug and play solution for them. Wow. And having that understanding is very important. And the most important thing is that today, the mobile picker, yard owner, processor, and aggregator we're working with, we work with 28,000 independent recycling operators in Malaysia.
Wow, that is a lot to manage. And I suppose the 24 years of experience has taught you how to understand this vast array of supply chain that you have for yourself and in your industry. The value of time and compounding and testing and measuring different things that work and did not. Can you share some of that with the audience? Because testing and measuring is not everyone's strength and is really not for everyone. But in your industry, it's so critical, I can see, because time is money. So you have to test and measure which works and which doesn't work quickly, get the processes that don't work out of the way and replace them with ones that can actually function based on the time scale that you require. So how did you fit through all these different processes and make sure that they work within the business model that you have?
Yeah. So matching and fitting is very important. Yeah. So let's talk about matching. Matching is that we start to, because if you were to see that, again, the mobile picker, processor and all that, and then, for us, we sit on the top and then we are the final one who customize the product, for export. For example, one of our product that sells very well in overseas is what we call a high melt flow plastic material. Yeah. So it can mix into, let's say, flower pots. Yeah. So plastic has a lot of advantages, but plastic has one disadvantages, which is molten plastic at 220 degrees Celsius. It's very hard to flow. Just a small flower pots, you may need like a 40, ton force. So basically that's a weight of a truck, just to force the molten plastic into that mold. Yeah. So typically for new material, there's a measurement on that. It's called a melt flow index. So the melt flow is 15. So we then customize a way to actually increase the melt flow to 45. So it's like a super fast flowing plastic material. And then for us, that becomes matching. Yeah, we can make it flow very fast. Then we start to think that, hey, now that the the plastic can actually do this, what is the fitting industry? Then we were like, flower pots, there are a lot of people that use a lot of flower pots. But then again, flower pots in our country or overseas. Then we start to think about the fit part, the fitting part, which is finding the right customer for this product. Then we start to look into that and say, you know what? We're not selling plastic. We're selling production time. So if the plastic, if let's say whatever they used to make in 1 minute, they used to make 15, let's say 15 flower pots, in Malaysia. Because we can do this 3 times faster, we can double the output. Yeah, let's say we can make 30 and all that. So that production cost, because we're trying to sell time, do we sell it in Malaysia or, for example, do we sell it in Europe because the production time is so high, or Japan because the production time is so high? So then we start to fit into Europe, into Japan. So we start to export this material over there. So there are certain category that we can do this. But there are some other category that needs to do other types, for infrastructure. So our job is to do a lot of matching. So whatever stream that comes in, we will then need to formulate and then engineer it so that it match different application. After that, we think about the commercial part of it. What are we really selling? Are we selling time? Are we selling, assurance? Are we selling peace of mind? So we're selling different things through recycled plastic.
Wow, that's a lot of thought, and I understand that that's definitely a lot of processes involved. Looks like if you are looking to follow in Kian's footsteps, there is a lot of ground to cover. But I want to come back to impact. Deep ocean plastics, those are something that you're very passionate about and you're very heavily involved. When did you turn to look into the issue of deep ocean plastics? Because plastics and the ocean, unfortunately, have had a very negative relationship, and with the number of humans increasing on the planet, that's only become even worse. So when did you decide to come into this deep ocean plastic issue?
Yeah. Well, actually, I believe it's ocean-bound plastic.
Ocean-bound plastic.
Yeah, but we do work with deep ocean-bound plastic. I'll share with you a little bit more on this. Right before pandemic, marine pollution was dominating headlines. Yeah, so we read a lot about marine pollution, and that was one that got me thinking. Well, especially one particular video where you see the straw that's been pulled out from a turtle's nostril. I think that video was so powerful that it probably has woken, a lot. It awakens, a lot of plastic users' mind, and then it created an emotional and also a mental reaction that, hey, what have we done? And all this plastic pollution issue were happening at land base, but we have not seen it until it hits the ocean. Then it becomes very, very vivid. It becomes straight in our face, that we're fronting with that. And of course, it kind of got us thinking that, look, we're a plastic recycling company. What have we done, to help to combat and to tackle this issue. We're very good at land-based plastic, but let's look into fighting this marine pollution through collection of ocean-bound plastic. So through this, then we start to basically leverage on our know-how in this land-based plastic recycling methodology. And in our mind, we wanted to create a defense system, kind of like a defense system to interject any plastic from going into the ocean, whether it's from river, land, so on and so forth.
Just before we continue, just
Sure.
so our audience understand, it's probably an obvious question, but how do plastics end up becoming ocean bound?
Okay. So plastic, when it's properly being recycled and managed, it's not an issue. However, when it's not properly managed, for example, when it's being thrown into the longkang, then to the river, it leads to the ocean. Yeah. If let's say Malaysia, we have many islands. We have hundreds of islands. If the islands does not have a proper waste management system, any of the dump sites, illegal dump sites and all that, because of rain and flood and all that, it goes to the oceans again.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So it's all because of the mismanaged situation. It somehow will create this ocean-bound plastic. So ocean-bound plastic, by definition, are plastic found within 50 kilometers, from the shoreline, and also because there is a lot of prominent mismanaged situation that's happening. So then for us, we try to use, our 7+1, our mechanical and chemical recycling technology to actually collect this plastic and then convert it to specialized material. However, collecting this itself, it's not enough because we want to authenticate that this comes from ocean-bound plastic and not land-based plastic. We decided to look for a very difficult certification process. And then one of the hardest is by Zero Plastic Ocean. So they are based in Paris. It's by far the hardest certification to fulfill. And we went through the entire audit to showcase how we collect, where we do all the process until the material is being, converted into material. Together with the team, I'm so glad and proud, to appreciate my team's effort that HHI become the first company in the world to achieve this ocean-bound certification. And I think that's also something, our aspiration that we want to do, that Malaysia, we're not a big country, we're not a small country either, but when the time is right, we could be the first in the world to do something great.
That's very encouraging. I mean, it's definitely an issue here in Malaysia. These ocean-bound plastics have been a part of the tourist landscape as well, as you know, because of the islands and some of the pollution that seeps out from these touristy destinations. So the next time you're on a holiday, maybe that should be something that's still a consideration. I know a lot of us are more conscious these days, but nevertheless, if we can look out a little bit more for Mother Nature in this sense, I'm sure that we'll have better oceans, cleaner beaches at the very least. You can tell every time the tide shifts, right? The amount of plastic that comes back, that shows that it's still an issue. Anyway, on that note, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, our final 20 minutes, we'll have, of course, your takeaways, but most importantly, the money. How did you get it? We're going to come back and talk about that. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to We Hear You, our final 20 minutes with Kian. And we're still focused on that industry that really no one saw coming. I think when you started, you had a lot of negative feedback. You had a fragmented industry. You had parts of the industry and components that weren't talking to each other. And you had to come in and bring your set of insights, your desire to reform and disrupt, and also create a new kind of sustainable landscape from which you have launched a wide array of products. But it didn't start that way. And when it started, you also needed a lot of capital. So when it comes to money, something like recycling is capital intensive. How did you start off with the financing?
So first we, start out something small that we do it in-house, and then increasingly we need to work with partners, engineering companies, so on and so forth. We mentioned briefly about grants and all that, but that's also another partner that's very important, which is obviously banks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, banks very, very important. So there are different types of banks. Commercial banks, they look at everything commercially. So trade financing, they know that, hey, you sell a product, you get the money, you export the product, and then we're going to receive forex. We can make money from there. So commercial banks, if once you're profitable, not an issue. But we do a lot of development. Yeah, that we mentioned. Like for example, we do the chemical recycling. So when we do chemical recycling, we have a pyrolysis process. So kind of like a pressure cooker that we convert the plastic scrap to naphtha. Now, we were the first at that time to do it, although smaller scale, in Malaysia. And then, who do we talk to? We need to talk to development bank, and then certification. We have a lot of certification. We have a lot of labs. So some of this development R&D centric, type of investment, commercial banks may not want to lend us. Then we need to look for development banks. So we also need to find, to have the right match again, in order to help the business to grow. Yeah.
And when it comes to something like that, we have had guests on the show that have had a similar problem. They're starting something new. No one knows what it is. Even they're not exactly sure where they're going yet, but it's in the infancy, and there is an idea, and they want to grow the idea. So what should the pitch be like when you're looking at grant funding or even banks? What was the pitch for your product like?
There are several parts that we need to look at it. The first thing is definitely commercially. So how do you make money? And then for us, let's talk about our experience. So when we create a new innovation, a new product, the first thing is that, can this make money? Yeah. So material that cannot be mechanical recycled anymore, it should actually go to landfill. But if I can use that as a raw material to go into my chemical recycling, then I can make money. If I can use my ocean-bound plastic scrap that we collected, and then that cannot be mechanical recycling, cannot be done for mechanical recycling because it's been soaked, in the ocean for too long. That can only do into chemical recycling. And then with the right certification, we can sell, to resin producer who want to buy this product. So commercially, it needs to survive. So I think that's something that's very important. Now, the second thing is also to think about why we want to do this. First is how we make money. The second thing is that why we do this. For HHI, when we do this, it's because we hate it whenever we see reports that says that Malaysia is one of the top 10 ocean polluting countries in the world. Depending on different reports, we sometimes rank number 3, number 5, number 8, and all that. We don't think that is the case. So we want to put in effort and then collect data so that we can respond to that. Work closely with MPMA, Malaysia Plastic Manufacturing Association, to collect data to actually do that and to say that no, our country is not like that. We do a lot better than what was being simulated, by some of this report, through some of their in-house study or whatever. So when we start to do that, then we need to look at a bigger picture beyond the product itself. Then we start to look at the ecosystem. Now, what benefit are we going to look at? So first, financial return. The second is the non-financial return, the intangible. The non-financial return sometimes could be bigger than the financial report, the return. So when we can say that, look, for HHI or Heng Hiap Industry, we do not import plastic scrap. Our mission is to recycle our own scrap, so that we are using, like currently we collect up to 60,000 tons of plastic scrap per year, and we export to 40 different countries, and all that. And we use our own scrap. So our own sampah has become a raw material to support our export. So when we start to look that along the way, we actually help the ecosystem as well. we also help the country to solve this problem as well. And then now we start to measure, how much, of the carbon footprint that contribute along with that, and then everything aligned with what the government wants to do. Now, when we align with what the government's tried to do, then that is the best time for us to talk to development bank, like SME bank. And that's when they listen. So always look into the tangible and the intangible, the financial and non-financial. And combine that, you will get a lot of the financial aid along the way.
Because you're old school. You started 24 years ago, even before sustainability was a buzzword, ESG was a thing. You started way before the bylines and all the jargon that's come out today. So, what are your thoughts on the terms sustainability, ESG, and how that's helped or hindered the process of the industry?
The good thing about sustainability, ESG, circular economy, right now, it sounds like there's a lot of talk in the air and all that. To me, that's great, because we are at a initial phase of, of communication, of education, of public awareness. It's all about creating that so that everyone start to understand that, hey, the 7+1 is possible, that, giving plastic a circularity is possible. And just like carbon neutral concept, plastic neutral is also possible, right? So according to a report, by Solid Waste Malaysia, Malaysian, we consume 76 kilogram of plastic per capita per year. Meaning, as long as each and every one of us contribute or recycle 76 kilogram, you are a plastic neutral citizen. Good on you. So that's all we have to do. So I think that part is all great, as a education, early stage awareness. It's very much necessary. Now, for SME or recycling operators, we need to do more than that as a champion. We need to make sure all that concept hits the ground. What does that mean? That we can actually showcase example of how fertilizer bags, being converted into tables and chairs. We need to show example how food containers are being converted into pans. So with HHI, we make sure we do a lot of this circularity, project to showcase, what we call a 4M concept, that we collect in Malaysia, we recycle in Malaysia, we make the product in Malaysia for Malaysians. So when we start to do all this close-loop recycling, then we start to see all the changes. You have no idea when we go to school and give the pens to the students, when they go to the parents actually come to our factory and say, obviously, you thought something profound, among my kids. What have you taught them? I want to hear more about that, because they were not able to articulate quite as well. So we're parents that come to our factory, that I give them a tour and say, this is what we taught them. And the parents was like, wow, that's amazing. And I'm even more impressed that my kids are teaching me this. So, for us, it's all about whatever concept that's been teaching up in the air to hit the ground, so that we practice that, and all of us want to be a plastic neutral citizen in Malaysia.
Awesome stuff. Now, you've heard this conversation for quite a while now. I'm sure you're wondering, how do you get started in the industry? Is there room to grow? Is there room for more players to come in and support the industry?
Oh, lots. I think the industry still need a lot of support. The industry still need a lot of innovation, a lot of creativity. We are going into a environment whereby, because of low oil prices, the new plastic material price is lower. However, the cost is going up. Whether it's electricity, labor, just general cost and inflation, cost is going up. So we are now walking into a situation whereby, if we're not careful, we'll get stuck, in between, and get trapped in between. And that is happening not just in Malaysia, but globally. But then again, that's the industrial weakness that we talked about earlier on. So then, what is the innovation that it takes to break all of this and then reinvent ourselves, to a new model? So on one side, I'm super scared. I'm really, really, really scared about, this situation that all this is happening. But on the other side, I'm super excited. And to think about that, hey, how are we going to adapt ourselves so that even in that environment, not only that we survive, we thrive, and showcasing Malaysian technology and our Malaysian, our homegrown ecosystem along the way.
Some final takeaways, maybe a quick word of advice or two to entrepreneurs watching this conversation right now. How can they jump into the industry, or if they want to follow in your footsteps, how can they be entrepreneurs in the very exciting plastic recycling industry?
I think adaptability it's very important. So I think we talk about a lot of this part. To be able to adapt in the environment, the changing environment. It's something that's very very important. Of course, always think about the commercial side. What are some of the things that to make a product that customer wants, the society wants. Look into the financial and non-financial, and then not just survive but thrive. So I think there are a lot of opportunity because the industry need to reinvent itself really, really quickly. That means, sky's the limit. We need all the help and all the resources and also the young talent that we need.
Thank you, Ken. It's been a great conversation. I've learned so much. I'm sure everyone watching has learned a lot as well in this brand new year, 2026. So, on that note, we look forward to our next conversation and hope that you continue to support us. Send us a comment or two, tell us how we're doing, and ask away questions from, of course, Kian himself, who will be tagged into this podcast anyway. So, he'll be able to respond. Once again, a big thank you for your time and your patience in elaborating your entire 24 years of journeying into this wonderful industry. So, this has been We Hear You, ideas, insights, and inspiration. We'll be back with more. Thank you for all your support. See you next time.